Coming up in the Bahamas tonight, a new resort deal will mean thousands of acres will be returned to the government. Unemployment numbers are up. We'll detail the latest Department of Statistics data. And a look at the new absentee voting system as it makes its debut in election 2012. All those stories and more straight ahead in the Bahamas tonight.
Covering the islands of the Bahamas, ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
I'm Keishla Adderley. Thanks for joining us. Topping the news tonight, a resort deal signed under different terms, a different layout, and in different economic times has been reworked and in effect returns nearly 6,000 acres of land to the government. An amended heads of agreement was signed today between the I Group and the government, returning more than half of the land granted to the company for the original $1.8 billion development on Mayaguana. Tourism Minister Vincent Vanderpool Wallace called the agreement historic and a special moment as he detailed how the so-called right-sized deal came about.
Let me say thank you, and we are happy to continue working on Mayaguana.
The I Group saw it coming, an economy going south and their development along with it if they didn't act fast. It was 2006 when the company signed an agreement with the Christie administration, but soon after, it was taking its lead from a merciless economy.
There was a letter that was sent in February 2008 invoking the force majeure clause in the agreement, citing some adverse economic conditions, and therefore the agreement, the development would not proceed at the same pace. So that's really what started this whole process, and we started looking at what was in the document regarding the scope and scale, a reason for slowing down. And we have to give some credit to Mr. Stephen Roy. He saw the oncoming global slowdown almost before anybody else. But that was really what triggered the beginning of slowing down the work, and we had some time to begin to work out some of the details after that.
The government was honor-bound to uphold the original deal, but the circumstances provided the opportunity to restore a portion of a tangible and sentimental asset after 3 years of talks.
It's a very important part of us allowing more and more Bahamian families, I mean some very well-known families in Mayaguana, the Blacks, the Browns, the Charltons, the Murphys, who have a great deal of land there, and the opportunity the I Group is providing is to become a catalyst and a stimulus for the development of that. But we thought together, after much discussion, that the amount of acreage that was put forward in the first part of this, in the original agreement, was something that we thought we'd like to scale back on and move in another direction.
Now that the terms are different, the I Group more closely reflects the model the government has in mind for Family Island development, as chairman of the Hotel Corporation, Michael Scott, notes.
A limit on the amount of acreage which is being made available to developers, but with an emphasis on the sort of high-end, low-density boutique operations.
And it will make available again valuable waterfront property and spin-off business opportunities. There are no new incentives for the developers, but the airport, estimated at between $5 and $7 million, is still in the plans.
The runway itself essentially is still as it was envisioned to allow Bahamas Air to run a Dash 8 and ensure continuous service, and when the time is ready to bring international air service into the island.
Now, the new heads of agreement is headed to the Senate for sanctioning on Wednesday, and in the near future expect to hear plans for what will be done with the government's newfound asset. It may not come as much of a surprise, but unemployment numbers in the country are up. The Department of Statistics released its findings today from its labor force survey, detailing conditions as they existed during the period October 24th through 30th of 2011. According to officials, the survey will now be taken twice a year in May and November. Our Janaea Noel Ferguson gives us the latest.
The Department of Statistics confirming Tuesday that the country's unemployment rate has jumped to 2.2% and now stands at 15.9%. This increase is in contrast to the reported decrease in the unemployment rate in 2010, which stood at 13.7%. Now here's the breakdown. New Providence's unemployment rate stands at 15.1%, up from 13.2%, while Grand Bahama's unemployment rate jumped to 21.2% from its previous 15.4%. For the first time, the unemployment rate for women was lower than that of men, meaning that more women, though not by much, are now employed. In New Providence, the number of persons in both the labor force and the unemployment labor force was almost equally distributed among the sexes. In Grand Bahama, however, men outnumbered women in both the labor force and the unemployed labor force, and there were fewer in numbers among the unemployed. Nevertheless, New Providence saw a 13% decline in the number of discouraged workers, while the reverse occurred in Grand Bahama, where the numbers increased by 42%. The national labor force now employs some 190,445 persons. Youth unemployment now 34%, which accounts significantly for the jump in the overall unemployment rate. Officials reasoned that when the report was conducted, many students were about to graduate from high school and university and were unlikely to be a part of the labor force. According to the report, some students also obtained jobs in November, and others were likely awaiting responses from their applications. Last May's survey data illustrates that a number of persons earned a living by engaging in informal sector activities. However, their business ventures petered out, and many withdrew from the labor force and joined the ranks of the unemployed, contributing to 2.4% decline in unemployed persons. Despite this, last year's results reported the same informal sector, which grew by 32%, with an addition of some 4,410 persons. This includes mostly vendors who are not taxed, have no job security, fixed hours, and are not entitled to benefits. The final report of the unemployment survey is expected to be completed by March of this year. Janae Noel Ferguson, ZNS News.
Well, the government is responding to those statistics showing a 2.2% increase in unemployment. State Minister for Finance in the Office of the Prime Minister, Shivago Lang, notes that the survey is usually conducted in May, while this recent survey was conducted in November, which is generally a downtime.
In November, you're talking about students haven't graduated in June who haven't had an opportunity yet to assimilate into the labor market, and so they'll be available as unemployed people. You also have a period in which the tourism sector is down, and just after that is when it actually peaks, and so you have reduced numbers of employed persons in that sector as compared to the peak season.
The labor force survey is usually an annual occurrence, but the Statistics Department now plans to conduct it biannually in May and November. Minister Lang suggests performing it on a quarterly basis will give a more well-rounded view. Meantime, he suggests that the numbers should be looking up in May based on programs the government has in place.
We have done a number of things in an effort to help to boost employment, whether that's the Jump Start program to help people get business grants to start their own businesses and therefore become self-employed and even employ other people, the Self-Starter program, the Job Readiness program, the infrastructure development programs that are employing thousands of people, or the Bahama program, which is still carrying on. Any number of those things ought to have and will contribute to some easing of the unemployment rate.
Executives of the Bahamas Commercial Stores and Supermarkets Workers Union, the bargaining unit representing those 85 employees made redundant after Robin Hood closed its doors a few days ago, are threatening legal action if $200,000 owed to their members isn't paid in full. Today, LaDon Davis spoke to the Secretary General of the union and former employees who say their severance pay was pittance.
We will try to take whatever monies we have coming in and try to compensate them as best we can along with our other obligations.
A promise that was not satisfactory to General Secretary of the Bahamas Commercial Stores Supermarkets Union, Donna Moss. Moss says days after Robin Hood closed its doors permanently, some employees who were on the job for at least 2 to 6 years were compensated with only $200, $250, and $300, not enough to sustain those employees and their families.
The bottom line of this, LaDawn, is that we are the bargaining agent for Robin Hood. We have an agreement signed by the government, Mr. Schaefer, and us, binding. Mr. Schaefer breached this agreement to the fullest. Upon knowing that he was going to make his shut the door, the union should have been notified while he was having the meeting with the staff.
Former employee D'Angelo Rose says while he was only able to take home $250 for 2 years, he is deeply concerned about other co-workers with a laundry list of responsibilities.
We have been treated unfairly a lot because we got 3 days notice, not enough time to at least look for another job. And in doing that, he also gave us $250, some $200, like she said, some $300, which I know we earn way more than that. And I don't know what action is going to take further from here, but I know that us as employees who have been loyal to that establishment, we need our money.
Moss says the union got an early hearing with the Department of Labor and Robin Hood last week Friday, but Schaefer did not appear. She says they have now filed a labor dispute against the mega food store and plan to fight for rights of all those redundant employees. LaDawn Davis, ZNS News.
The Minister of Labor is responding to the conflict at the Sandals Royal Bahamian Resort. This after members of the Hotel Maintenance and Allied Workers Union staged a protest on the property yesterday. Our Carla Palmer has that.
Despite a long scheduled meeting set for Wednesday regarding the union and Sandals, Labor Minister Dion Folks says he was first alerted to the union's latest claims against the Sandals management on Sunday.
I'm watching one of the evening news. I think it was on ZNS, where the president of the union was complaining publicly about some matter involving the management at Sandals. Up to that point, I had no knowledge of it. I was advised that there was going to be a demonstration on yesterday morning, which took place. Up to date, I still have not received any formal complaint from the union concerning the allegations at Sandals. I did receive a call from Mr. Obi Ferguson during the time that the demonstration was taking place yesterday.
Minister Folks says he's since taken action to find out more about the matter.
We dispatched 2 labor officers to Sandals to conduct an investigation yesterday morning to find out exactly what had happened. I am still awaiting the report from those labor officers.
A meeting has been scheduled between all parties concerned on Wednesday at the Ministry of Labor. Minister Folks says he's looking forward to it.
In these matters, I do not take sides. I try to reconcile both sides to see if we can come to some amicable agreement.
That meeting is set for 10 a.m. Carla Palmer, ZNS News.
Well, still on the labor front, tonight an emergency meeting with the Bahamas Public Service Union and its members is set to take place. The union will be planning its next move in its quest to receive treatment equal to that granted in the Bahamas Union of Teachers Agreement. Today, the Minister of State for the Public Service, Zhivago Lang, said he's uncertain of exactly what the union's complaints are. According to Mr. Lang, he hasn't seen any formal complaint.
Prime Minister and Mr. Pinder have sat and talked before. They have conversed over the phone before. If there is continuing discussions and dialogue, etc., toward resolving whatever union issues are outstanding, that's the way to do it. Now, what I'm saying is, I'm not aware that there's something on the table that has been put in the course of formal discussions with the Prime Minister or with the government that he's now awaiting to hear outside of the threats of strikes that I've heard in the press. If that's what he's referring to, if that's the demand that he's talking to, well then that's a different matter altogether.
Well, still to come in the Bahamas tonight, more on the new absentee voting system. That story is up next.